My name is Ryan Lynette. I'm the Snare Tech at Rise. I'm going to show you how to tune a bottom snare head today. We'll start with everything disassembled. So we have the shell, we have the hoop, we have the bottom head separate. First thing you want to do is place the shell into the mounting hardware. Make sure that all the holes are lining up, that the shell is centered, so it's not pushed one way or the other, that everything is where it needs to be in terms of placement, that this front emblem is nice in between those two of the floating rods. Next thing we do is we take our hoop and our head. We want to seat the head into the hoop before we put it on the drum. Okay, so you want to make sure that this is seated flat all the way all around that hoop in every area so that it doesn't go in sideways. Okay, next thing to make sure is to make sure that the holes for the snare strainer are actually where the snare strainer goes. Right? A lot of times people will put it on sideways and then you get it halfway on and realize that's not going to work. So make sure that that's all lined up. Okay, make sure that all the little lugs get in the casings the right way. I usually get them finger started first, just to make sure they're all going to thread correctly so you don't strip anything all the way around. Okay, and then from here you can either finger tighten these all the way down, or you can take the key, as long as you're careful, and just tighten it right to where it touches the rim. You can just go around in a circle for this. Don't put any tension down on the hoop, so you're trying not to move the hoop at all. Just getting it down to the rim. Alright, so once you made it all the way around, they should all be touching the rim. You should make sure that your head is positioned whatever way you want, however you want to turn your head so that they're all drums are the same. Doesn't really matter where the logo goes, whatever your liking is. Make sure the snare strainer again is across from the snare holes. And then I'll usually make sure that all these are actually touching the rim once you've gone all the way around. There's no tension on any of them, that they're still just finger tight all the way around. Then I'll usually start by the snare strainers. It doesn't really matter where you start, as long as you always start in the right spot, or the same spot. So I always start over here for me. Then I'll usually do about a full turn. So this is 180, so that's a half turn, and that's a full turn. I'll do a full turn first, right? And you want to go across from the lugs from you started with, kind of in a zigzag pattern across. So I start here, then I go here, then I go here, right? So as soon as you start to tighten one of these down, all the others are going to come a little bit loose. So you want to make sure that it's touching the rim before you do your full turn. So you do your full turn there. Again, make sure this is touching the rim. Do your full turn. Same thing with this. Touching the rim. Full turn. It's important that you do the full turn from where it's touching the rim, or else you're not really getting a true representation of the same tension on each lug to start with. It's starting from a different position compared to where the hoop is sitting. Okay, then once I've made it all the way around, a lot of times you'll find that depending on how the head was stretched out or how the hoop was sitting in the original spot, you'll get one side that kind of has some creases in it and one side that is tighter than the other one. You want to make sure that the bearing edge on both sides is sticking up the same amount. So this one right now is lower, right? So we have less tension on this side of the head, more on this side of the head. It's kind of sticking up higher. If you notice on the shell before we start, most snare drums go down right here where the snare goes. The bearing edge kind of dips down a little bit, and that's kind of offset some tension so you get the best sound in the center of the head. But for right now, we want to make sure that we're getting everything to be nice and even. So I'll do probably like a half turn on both of these, then a half turn on both of these. Seems like maybe those need like a full turn. Just get that to the rim. Do that full turn there. To the rim, a full turn. All right, and now these are getting closer to being the same on both sides in terms of height. I'm gonna go just a little bit more. All right, so basically what I just did is I took this whole side of the hoop down like that, right, or put more tension on it so the head sits up farther. So now we have the same tension here, right, and we'll find that with the stick, we'll hopefully find that most of these are gonna be the same tension. Like I said, the bearing edge goes down, so it's always gonna start lower here and higher here. I wouldn't worry about that in the beginning stages. I would tune it without really listening to it in the beginning. So we notice it's lower here, higher here, right? And I wouldn't worry about that until we get it up higher, because the higher you go, the more that's going to kind of balance that as we take the head up. So like I said, I'll start back here, make sure it's on the touching the rim, maybe go a half turn this time all the way around. Now we're back where we started. We're getting closer, as you can see. Right, so that difference in the bearing edge, don't worry about that in the beginning until you start to get it up. I usually take the pitch all the way up when we tune to get our kind of our show tuning, all the way up to a C sharp, sometimes a D depending on how old the heads are, but a C sharp is a good guess. So that's way higher than this, and you don't want to go all the way up on the first round. You kind of want to take it up to somewhere that the head is sitting even with itself, and then it's going to stretch out and it's going to pull a little bit, and the more you play on it and the older the head gets, the more it's going to kind of seat. So I find the best sound I get with bottom heads is maybe a week after I put them on. I've tuned them maybe once, come back a couple days later, tune them again, come back a couple days later. The third time usually you can get it up to where you want, and it'll sit there and stay nice and solid at that pitch for you. So I'll go back around starting the same lug, half turn. Sweet. So now we're going to put the snares back on. These were obviously off when we started. You want to make sure that the flat side of this goes facing up if the drum is upside down, which will be facing down after this. So you thread that through this side, put that all the way through there. And there's this little knob that screws into there. Be careful threading this. I've misthreaded these a couple times, and then you strip this and you have to re-tap it, which is not fun for anybody. Your snare tension is totally dependent on what kind of sound you want. Obviously, you want a more wet sound, it'll be looser. You want a little bit tighter sound, a shorter sound, it'll be tighter. I tend to not mess with that until I get the top and bottom head where I want, and then I'll kind of mess with what I like, depending on how many snares we have, the tension of the top head as well. So there's a lot of factors that kind of go into that, which is a much more complicated system than just putting the bottom head on. I always do my final tuning though with the snares on the head, touching the head. Some people will tune the bottom head with them off. You're going to get different sounds because this one is always going to touch this bearing edge here. This one is not. So this is not really giving you a good representation of what the head's going to sound like once you get everything squared away. So I always do my final tuning with the snares on the head, making sure that the strainer up and down is sitting as flat as possible across this. So you don't want a lot of extra space, like the snares off the head, but you don't want them torqued too tight down because you don't want to be changing the way the head sounds. So I do my final tuning with that on there. Kind of go around, see what it sounds like. So right now these are still lower. Once I get it closer to the final pitch, like I said, those will start to even out. Sometimes you do have to take these up just a little bit quicker, a little bit more, and then these, so on and so forth from here. And then these ones usually have to do, the least as you get closer and closer to what you want. So I might do like a half plus a quarter on all these four. Right to there, and then I might do a half turn on these, and then I might only do a quarter turn on these. And like I said, I would wait until you get closer to your desired pitch, but if this is your desired pitch, then you want to even that out. You want to get the same pitch all the way around. So now we have the same pitch, kind of all the way around our drum, and that's how you do that.